welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy. The Secret of the Golden Flower, Part 15, in which I will continue reading The Secret of the Golden Flower. But first, previously on Chicken Philosophy, Mang, youthful folly. Wrong me from episode 6. That, in fact, above your head was Hasu, or waiting, or nourishment. Anyway, just wanted to get that out of the way. Now it's done. I never have to think about it again. That's the lovely thing about saying things in certain contexts. Okay. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing well. And before I get started, of course, we always do I Ching at the beginning of these. But before I do the I Ching, I wanted to talk to you for a moment about the number 64. Now, some of you may already be aware of how the number 64 ties in with the I Ching. There's 6 rows of 2 possibilities, on or off, broken or unbroken, 1 or 0. Those who are familiar with binary code in particular might realize very quickly, oh, well, yes, of course. 64 is the total number of possible numbers you can get with 6 digits of binary code. In that particular context, one of those numbers is 0. So you can reach a total of 63 value, but you can also get a 0, meaning there are 64 different possible numbers you can get. By the way, if you ever have the opportunity, if you ever see this somewhere, I know when I see this again, there's like 3 left. It's 15 rupees. That's like 20 cents for this whole box. And it's really good incense. Anyway, they're not paying me for that sponsorship. I'm just doing that of my own free will. So yeah, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. Just bear with me. I know some people are like math phobic. 32 is 64. You reach 64 by multiplying 2 by 2 with 6 2's involved, right? Another way that you can also reach 64 is 4 to the power of 3. So 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. And there's no coincidence there because 4 is a multiple of 2. And so, of course that's going to happen with most. Every multiple of 4 is also going to be a multiple of 2. And half the multiples of 2 are going to be a multiple of 4. No big surprise. One way that you could express as the I Ching so nicely expresses the 64 that can result from the 2 to the power of 6. One way that you could express 4 to the power of 3 is to have 4 positions and every different possible shape that you can make. Now, in the old sigil making method, you have a circle to represent where you start and a perpendicular line to represent where you end. So just so you don't mix up this and this, those aren't the same. Where it starts and where it ends are important. 123 is different from 321. I just turned 46, which is different from 64, which is the number that we're talking about. So what does this have to do with anything? Well, the DNA of you, your body, your banana. I mean, an actual banana, or the sexy one. Either one. Every life form, even the viruses that are arguably not even life forms, are all written in a language that is based upon this idea of the 64, the 4 permutations of 3, or rather the 3 permutations of 4. Now, if I start saying chemically names, don't get freaked out. Just stay with me just a little bit longer. So it's the nucleic acids. There's 4 for all intents and purposes. There's 5, but there's 4 at a time, right? And each group of 3 of those 4. So in other words, if you break them down into numbers, it'd be like 1, 4, 2, or 3, 2, 2, or 1, 1, 1, or 4, 4, 4. Every combination of 4 things in groups of 3, you end up with 64 possibilities. The way that our biology uses that is it reduces by combining. So in other words, let's start illustrating that up here. It'll take more than one of these permutations, and it'll combine them to make, one thing. And so what I've done here is I've taken these symbols. First of all, I've expressed it as these symbols, and then combined the symbols in order to express what they result in. In other words, if you have an amino acid, which is one of the building blocks of a protein, right, that can be created with this combination or this combination. And if somebody goes into your DNA, right, when you're an egg, when you're a zygote, and just swaps a few things around just within that one little permutation, but it still ends up saying the same letter, it's still one of the possible permutations that result in that amino acid, then it makes no difference and you're exactly the same physically as you would have been had it been the other way, right? So it doesn't matter too much. It's sort of like the difference between spelling your name in cursive or lowercase or all caps. It still says Bob, it still says Edward, it still says whatever, right? So, so it reduces them down to 22 possibilities. Now, some of you are saying, 22? There's only 20. No, there's 22. In the tRNA, in certain rare cases, the one that's usually the stop command ends up expressing another amino acid. It's the 21st one. And then if I count the stop command as its own, let's say, letter, since there's no punctuation in the DNA, the closest they get to punctuation is the methionine doubles as a start. So the beginning of the word, let's say, is always going to be the same as a methionine, but it's not a methionine. So it'd be like if every word started with, like in Bhutan, they finish most sentences with la. So la doesn't have a meaning other than that the sentence is over. So in the case of DNA, it'll say methionine, and then it's like, okay, yeah, what do you want me to do? You want me to start a word? Yeah. What's the first letter of the word? Well, in this particular case, the first letter is methionine. So you say methionine twice. Once to let it know that it's going to start, and then the other, once it's started, you have to say it again if you actually want that to be the first letter. So just because it's there doesn't mean it's the first letter, unless it's there twice. And then the stop command is always the stop command, again, except in the case of the tRNA. Is this confusing? Well, luckily, I wrote a book about it called The DNA Alphabet, and as it so happens, this video is hitting the airwaves at the exact minute that the free book promotion is beginning. And you can find the link in the description. You can download this into your phone, and you get the whole description. You can take it slow, where I went a little bit quickly. This is kind of like, this is me as I'm Frater BT. You can tell from the Rose Cross Lawman and everything. This whole getup. This is from my Golden Dawn years. I'm still occasionally dress up as myself. Never mind. Anyway, so I wrote this under the name VH Frater BT is actually my full name. That's actually a veil. It should say GH, but no. It's neither here nor there. But yeah, so I wrote this book. The first few pages explains like when I came up with this idea, how I decided which, side should represent what, and then it goes into each letter and what the permutations are. So it's all stuff that would have been in your high school biology book, but it probably was presented in a way that was very boring and, tedious, and you weren't that interested in. And it seems like the only people that would be interested in this language are like people who want to go work at Monsanto or something, but the way this is written is it's approaching it as a magical language, which it is, for fuck's sake, more than any other language that humans have come up with. This language actually makes the most amazing thing in the universe happen, which is life. I know I'm being, perhaps I'm biased because I am a life form. But yeah, so this is all kind of based on Kabbalistic concepts, the way that I decided to put everything in its particular places. There's a little bit of Vajrayana crossover. So you can get yourself this. You can read it on your own. It's not that thick. You can read it once, twice. You'll own it forever once you click the link in the description below and download it onto your phone or your device or whatever. So it's free from September 27th through the end of October 1st. And the promotion starts at midnight on the morning of September 27th, California time, so 3 p.m. New York time. For me here in India, that's 12:30, afternoon on the 27th, and then it's free through the end of the 1st. All right, I'm done with that, and you know what I forgot to bring over here? A coin, which means we are going to be using this again. Remember this from last time? All right, so, yeah, here we go. And we've got this one. Wow! I shuffled it and everything, but this is like a close cousin of the one we got last time that was on this, through these cards. It's 2 broken at the top, and then the rest is unbroken. Can you see that there? We'll put that on the screen. So I just scanned it, the card, and noticed the little man sitting, meaning that the figure was upside down. So just so you know that I know that I screwed up. But, we'll just let it play out with the misunderstanding and, assume that the figure that he saw, or me, I, whatever, whoever, was the one that we were meant to get for this episode. And speaking of put it on the screen, we'll let this hang out with us for the duration. Right there in the corner. That's me in the corner. Now, let's turn up the music, Editor Edward, while I figure out which one that is. Okay. The top 3 is thunder, unbroken, or rather broken, unbroken. The bottom 3 is heaven, all unbroken. So it's Ta Chuang, which means the power of the great. The little blurb, it says, to achieve true power and true greatness, one must be in harmony with what is right. Well, there you go. Okay, let's get to the reading. Why not? By the way, if you would like to start at the beginning of this book, or somewhere in the middle, or maybe you need to catch up, or there's 1 or 2 that you haven't seen, that's the playlist. As to the poem at the beginning, the first 2 lines refer entirely to the activity of the golden flower. Let's just flip back and remind ourselves what those first 2 lines are. Line 1. 4 words crystallize the spirit in the space of energy. Line 2. In the 6th month, white snow is suddenly seen to fly. Okay, now let's see what they're going to say about that. The 2 next lines are concerned with the mutual interpenetration of sun and moon. Those next 2 lines are... As the third watch, the sun's disk... at the third watch, the sun's disk sends out blinding rays. In the water blows the wind of the gentle. The 6th month is the clinging, Li, fire. Remember 2 episodes ago? Episode 13 of Secret of the Golden Flower on Chicken Philosophy. We got Li, right? Li, the hexagram on top of Li, the hexagram, combining the two together to get Li, the I Ching figure. Never mind. The white snow that flies is the true polar darkness in the middle of the fire trigram, right? It's solid, broken, solid. I think I'll say solid instead of unbroken. All right. Yes. That is about to turn into the receptive. The 3rd watch is the abysmal, Ka'an, or K''an, water. Ka'an, and then water, right? The sun's disk is the one polar line in the trigram for water, which is about to turn into the creative. Waters of creation. That's sort of a Western idea, but here it is. Something, yeah. I always tend to think, there's 4 possibilities, right? When you find something in China that's the same as something in Israel or whatever, Palestine, let's say, then the possibilities are 1, if it's something from like the 1700s, okay, well, there might have been some actual communication and influence. All right, there's 5 possibilities. Possibility number 2, it's universally human. It's a great universal truth or something. Or they were both drawing from the same place in some kind of shared collective consciousness or unconscious or astral space or something like that. Or there's a common origin that goes back to like proto-humans, or goes back very, very far, as in we can see and point to examples of connections between things in ancient Sanskrit and things in all the European languages, most of them, because they all come from Indo-European, Proto-Indo-European, which is just the name that we give to the language that they both must have come from, because they clearly come from a common ancestor language, right? And a lot of similar concepts, days of the week, and that kind of thing. That's interesting. If you go far enough back, then perhaps there's a common origin that goes way back, like before there's even any archaeological evidence of people, because it was before agriculture and cities and stuff, maybe before wheat. And then the last option is just a coincidence. Right. Sometimes I talk for the folks who are new. Sorry. The sun's disk is the one polar line in the trigram for water, which is about to turn into the creative. Yeah, we already read that one. This contains the way to make the trigram for the abysmal and the way to reverse the trigram for the clinging. Fire, Li, which is a palindrome. Never mind. Okay. It's spelled the same forward and backward. The following 2 lines have to do with the activity of the pole of the great wane, the rise and fall of the whole release of polarity. Water is the trigram of the abysmal. The eye is the wind of the gentle. Parentheses, sun, and parentheses. The light of the eyes illumines the house of the abysmal and controls there the seed of the great light. Quote, in heaven, end quote, everything is fine. Any Uber fans of David Lynch? I'm glad you got to see that. It's from Eraserhead, if you want to watch the whole movie. Anyway, this means, in heaven, in quotes, right? This means the house of the creative. quote, wandering in heaven, one eats the spirit energy of the receptive, end quote. This shows how the spirit penetrates the energy, how heaven penetrates the earth. This happens so that the fire can be nourished. Okay. Finally, the two last lines point to the deepest secret, which cannot be dispensed with from the beginning to the end. This is the washing of the heart and the purification of the thoughts. This is the bath. The holy science takes as a beginning the knowledge of where to stop, and as an end, stopping at the highest good. Its beginning is beyond polarity, and it empties again beyond polarity. The Buddha speaks of the transient, the creator of consciousness, as being the fundamental truth of religion. Can't help wondering if that's like the Lotus Sutra Buddha, the Mahayana Buddha, or the Buddha Buddha. One day I'll be expert enough after I read all of those books on Buddhist Books Podcast. And I'll be able to tell. I'll be able to spot when someone says the Buddha says that. I'll be like, yeah, according to Ashtavakra, according to the Avamsaka. Never mind. I'll just keep reading. Ashtavakra Gita is something else that's more Vedanta. Right. Where to stop? Stopping at the Buddha speaks. Yes, and the whole work of completing life and human nature in our Taoism lies in the expression, quote, to bring about emptiness, end quote. All three religions agree in the one proposition, the finding of the spiritual elixir in order to pass from death to life. Yeah, they're not talking about Theravada, are they? In what does this spiritual elixir consist? It means forever dwelling in purposelessness. Oh, I love it. I love it. My wife and I were just talking about purposelessness. Yes. One makes one's own purpose. It's the real nihilism, not the straw man nihilism that people say it doesn't mean anything, might as well just kill people. No. There is no externally enforced meaning. You find the meaning. Which was a controversial thing to say when everybody was getting their meaning from the pulpit in their local church, as many still do. We discussed these ideas on another segment in Chicken Philosophy. You can check that out. Don't check that out. You can, though, if you want to. But, Okay, where were we? I think Gwydion was going far too easy on Martin Luther in the previous episode. But it was a nice change from just being tortured and being in a state of rage, though, I'd say. But we'll have to find a balance between like just giving him a pass and just criticizing every word. Gotta find. It's always about finding the balance, right? Yes. What? Yes. In what does this spiritual elixir consist? It means, oh wait, we just read that. The deepest secret of the bath that is to be found in our teaching is thus confined to the work of making the heart empty. You do find that in Christian scripture too. You can't pour new wine into an old wineskin. If there's already something in there, then you can't accept the spirit and all that stuff. If you got your earthly treasures in there, right? Let the bed dairy their bed and all that and fun stuff. Okay, right. Therewith the matter is settled. What I have revealed here, in a word, is the fruit of a decade of effort. A whole decade. I mean, it's a lot. It's a fair amount of time. if you are not yet clear as to how far all three sections can be present in one section, I will make it clear to you through the threefold Buddhist contemplation of emptiness, delusion, and the center. Emptiness comes as the first of the three contemplations. All things are looked upon as empty. Then follows delusion. Although it is known that they are empty, things are not destroyed, but one attends to one's affairs in the midst of the emptiness. But though one does not destroy things, neither does one pay attention to them. This is contemplation of the center. While practicing contemplation of the empty, one also knows that one cannot destroy the 10,000 things, and still one does not notice them. The 10,000 things usually just means all that stuff, all of it. It's the noise outside, the phone ringing, Aunt so-and-so and her issues, and the guy at work that's always doing that thing, and just all that stuff. The 10,000 things, right? Right. Where were we? Were we here? Yes, we were. Yeah, in this way, the three contemplations fall together. But after all, strength is in envisioning the empty. Therefore, when one practices contemplation of emptiness, emptiness is certainly empty. But delusion is empty too, and the center is empty. Now that's one thing that, I always had a hard time communicating to some folks back when I was a teacher. I'm so happy not to be a teacher anymore, but when I was a teacher, sometimes my students would come to me and say, I just have this profound and deep depression, and I'd say, well, tell me about it. What's up? Well, I realized that everything is meaningless. That none of it's real. It's all just temporal. It's all just, temporary. Atoms temporarily arranged. It's all thoughts are just, interpretations, and it's all going to be fleeting away. And I was like, hey, you know what else isn't real? This so-called deep and profound depression that you're having as a result of the realization of the meaninglessness is also just as meaningless as everything that you've realized is meaningless. And they don't realize that I'm helping them, or trying to, in pointing that out. You're one step. I've emptied myself of everything except for this one really shitty thing that claims to have derived its existence from the emptying out of everything else. Okay, well, get rid of that too. You're almost there. I don't know what else to say, Jesus. Yeah, so the delusion is also empty, right? The 10,000 things too. While practicing contemplation, yes, we read that already. Delusion is also empty too, and the center is empty. Empty. Right? It needs a great... By the way, if you are ever in New Delhi, India, I recommend going to MT. A, see what I did there, and B, no, seriously though, Majnu Katila. You can just look up Tibetan refugee colony. It's in North Delhi. It's worth a visit. While you're in New Delhi, get out of New Delhi as quickly as possible if you're coming to India. But if you're going to be in New Delhi for longer than a day, do yourself a favor and go to MT. Let's take a little visit with our friend Tashi at Bodhi Tree in MT. This shirt I'm wearing was handmade by Tashi here at the Bodhi Tree, or just it's called Bodhi Tree?
Yeah, Bodhi Tree.
Bodhi Tree in Majnu Katila, MT, the Tibetan colony in North Delhi.
Yep.
So you should come here if you want one just like it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, you can pick yourself up a shirt just like that one if he's still making those. Where were we? The weeping child is also empty. Being on the way of the center, one also creates images of the emptiness. They are not called empty, but are called central. Hubbard called it postulates. Sorry, I like to inject a little bit of Scientology randomly just to make people nervous, One practices also contemplation of delusion, but one does not call it delusion. One calls it central. As to what has to do with the center, more need not be said. Okay, now the font size is shrinking, which means now this is the other document. It's also an old Chinese document, but it's a different old Chinese document that the translator and editor has combined because it's related to what we just read. This section mentions first Yu Qing's magical spell for the far journey. This magical spell states that the secret wonder of the way is how something develops out of nothing. In that spirit and energy unite in crystallized form. There appears, in the course of time, in the midst of the emptiness of nothing, a point of the true fire. Zim, anybody? Sorry. During this time, the more quiet the spirit becomes, the brighter is the fire. The brightness of the fire is compared with the sun's heat in the 6th month. Wow, that's pretty hot in June, isn't it? Because the blazing fire, I'm assuming that's around June. Because the blazing fire causes the water of the abysmal to vaporize, the steam is heated, and when it has passed the boiling point, it mounts upward like flying snow. It is meant by this that one may see snow fly in the 6th month. Okay, maybe it's December. I don't know. Different system of months. But because the water is vaporized by the fire, the true energy is awakened. Yet when the dark is at rest, the light begins to move. It is like the state of midnight. Therefore, adepts call this time the time of the living midnight. At this time, one works at the energy with the purpose of making it flow backwards and rise, and flow down to fall like the upward spinning of the sun wheel. Therefore it is said, quote, at the 3rd watch the sun's disk sends out blinding rays, end quote. The rotation method makes use of breathing to blow on the fire of the gates of life. In this way, one succeeds in bringing the true energy to its original place. Therefore it is said that the wind blows in the water. Out of the single energy of former heaven, there develops the out and ingoing breath of later heaven and its inflaming energy. The way leads from the sacrum upward in a backward flowing way to the summit of the creative and on through the house of the creative. Then it sinks through the 2 stories in a direct downward flowing way into the solar plexus and warms it. Therefore it is said, quote, wandering in heaven, one eats the spirit energy of the receptive, end quote. Because the true energy goes back into the empty place, in time, energy and form become rich and full. Body and heart become glad and cheerful. If by the practice of the turning of the wheel of the doctrine, this cannot be achieved, how otherwise should one be able to enter upon this far journey? What it amounts to is this: the crystallized spirit radiates back to the spirit fire, and by means of the quietest quiet, fans the, quote, fire in the midst of the water, end quote, which is in the middle of the empty cave. Therefore it is said, quote, and the still deeper secret of the secret, the land that is nowhere, that is the true home. Should we stop there? I'm not really sure how long the episode is, because it was recording for a while before I started reading. I hope the episode is not too short. Yeah, good stuff. This is I don't know exactly the origins of things. I'm mostly like academically, mentally, cerebrally, intellectually masturbating, curious to know the origins of things. I think I used to ascribe validity or invalidity to the relative origins of things, but over time I've come to kind of have a different perspective and realize that whether it was some nutter who was like jacked in to the source that came up with something in a cave in ancient China, or in a vihar, in a hut in ancient India, or maybe in ancient Africa, or in a drum circle in the 70s in San Francisco, doesn't matter all that much. It doesn't matter all that much. But that being said, since I felt at a certain point in my 30s that I had an abundance of teachings that had been given and rubbed off on me, if you know what I mean, from kind of more the hippie drum circle in the 70s, figuratively speaking, whether that means the Theosophic Society in the late 19th century, or literally a drum circle in the 70s, or whatever, or anywhere in between. Like, a lot of things had been downloaded from that part of humanity. And so I've opted to supplement that by delving into these earlier sources, scripture and what have you, and coming to this ancient land and all that. But that all just to say that, the circulation of the light, the circulation of the energy, was something that my dad had taught me in the context of a Tibetan yoga chant meditation method that he had learned from Andrew de Bassano, and from having spoken to other students of Andrew de Bassano, there was at least one thing, perhaps more. Perhaps my dad put his a little bit of his own ideas into the way that he taught it to me that was different from what he learned from Andrew de Bassano, which Andrew de Bassano had learned directly and indirectly from someone called the Tibetan, not the one that was channeled by what's her name, who wrote the book It Started Raining. Anyway, so yeah, so this was all kind of like bringing back to me like stuff that my dad had taught me when I was young, and looking at the incense and watching its patterns when I was 7, 8 years old on a Saturday morning in Vista Circle in Sierra Madre Canyon. Kind of brought a lot of that back. I think what I'm going to do for the rest of this video is I'm going to take my description where I was leading. I don't know how many people were there, six or seven people, and I was guiding them through this this practice that my dad had taught me, and I'm gonna overlay that and couple that with a separate video that I put on at the end of a different episode of Esoteric Nerd, where I was performing it in my robe that I wear today, usually on Buddhist books, or I should say Pymander, if we're going to stick to the chicken philosophy rules. I'm gonna just put those together, and so you can enjoy that. That'll come after the chicken cluck.
So we'll begin with Om, and then next breath Ah, and then next breath Hum. So just finding a nice meditative kind of upright, comfortable posture. Where the body, so nothing's like falling asleep, or you're not like hurting yourself slouching or anything. Just kind of find a nice posture. Sound like, and we exhale with a, and with the exhale we activate Mula Bandha, activating the muscles of the perineum, getting a bit taller and pressing down as though rising up on a bicycle seat. And with the exhale we relax. Is that right? Inhale, we relax. Inhale, we relax. With the exhale we activate, so as not to drain the energy through the root into the ground. In. Exhale, activate. Inhale, relax. Filling with golden light from the heart and from the crown, from the third eye. And placing the left palm 2 finger widths below the navel, and the right palm on the back of the left hand. And focusing in to the Dantian point there, the furnace, the energy storehouse, called Swadhisthana, and visualizing there a world wherein in the center of this golden world is a golden furnace being tended to by beautiful childlike beings who now see the love that you pour through to them from both of your palms as the sun in their sky. They are very grateful. because sometimes we store our shame here. So send as much love and joy and forgiveness to this part of your body as we vibrate Oin 3 times. Releasing the hands, bringing them back to where it's comfortable, maybe resting them on the legs, or bringing them together. And bringing our attention up to the solar plexus, the place of action, the place of individual self, the place of individual identity, the golden orb, a light, golden light there. And the sound that we make when we digest an idea and we find what's useful and what's not within the idea, and we say, "Oh," is the sound we will make for this sphere. Rising up with these spheres firmly established and comfortable in their place, rising up into the heart, opening up to the pink light of pure agape love and allowing it to flow outward to the ends of the universe, filling the entire universe, not limited by our concepts of spatial limitations. Allow the whole universe to be filled with the pink light that you are generating from your own heart. And since the universe has no end, that goes on forever. And any face that comes to mind just becomes submerged by that pink light and is erased by that pink light, but they are included in that pink light as best you can. Love for all beings, absolute love from the heart, the place of breath, the place of the immune system, the place of nourishing the whole body of the universe. Pink light. And the sound ah, and since it's the most important one, we'll do it 7 times instead of 3. Circulating the breath, circulating the energy through the aura, perhaps lightly activating Mula Bandha on the exhale and relaxing on the inhale, circulating the light up the back and down the front, Raising the energy up to the throat, raising the attention, raising the focus of the self up to the throat, the place of communication, of artistic expression, the place of speech, of listening as well as being heard. A light blue light for today. The sound hum, and pressing up on the back of the top of the mouth, a few soft inches below the third eye, beginning to awaken the third eye for the next part. Hum. Hum. Yourself in the third eye, the pituitary and pineal, the center of the brain where the eye of Ra can be seen if you slice the brain down the middle. Using a dorja, you can pass them both around if you like. Holding it as such with the 3 fingers in the middle, pointing it at the third eye, raising the back of the head up a little bit and the front a little bit down. About an inch in front of the brow. Bringing your attention up to the third eye, perhaps bringing your gaze slightly up towards your brow, gently. The sound is E. And if you like Sandy, here you go. And if you want to pass that. The E is high-pitched. And all the many Buddha lands and each other sitting in this room, and all of those on the various other planes and their various situations and struggles, feeling compassion for all beings, circulating the light throughout the body, in the crown and in the root, activating the root for the exhale, gazing up toward the third eye, relaxing the face, repeating after me, to the north and to the south,
to the north and to the south,
to the east and to the west,
to the east and to the west,
to the spirits of light among us,
to the spirits of light among us,
and to the spirits below,
and to the spirits below.
We send out our reverent love and compassion.
We send out our reverent love and compassion.
May all beings be happy.
May all beings be happy.
May all beings be serene.
May all beings be serene.
May all beings be in peace.
May all beings be in peace.
There are 7 selves, and yet they are one. Right now we are in the 6th self, in the third eye, aware of the many other beings. Arise now from the third eye, out through the top of your head, out through the crown, to the 1,000-petaled lotus above your head. The great Atman, the great self we have in common with the universe, whose sound reverberates throughout the universe and all universes, and that sound is Om, 3 times. Om.